Now, TikTok was banned for a couple of hours, and apparently it came back. But what's interesting is that even using a VPN wouldn't allow you to connect to it if you were from America. And so the world experienced TikTok without Americans. And we can actually look at some of the interactions that I found to be incredibly insightful and should be self reflecting for some. Well, some people are joking and they're saying, like, guys, we can talk in kilograms now. And other people being happy, saying that it feels like they survived an apocalypse. Other people are saying interesting things like, never realized how loud they are. It feels like all the loud kids stayed home from school. But more importantly, like, this one really hit pretty hard. Notice how no one is hating. And unfortunately, like, this is the vision that a lot of people have in the world of Americans. And take into account that it's not all Americans, like, obviously, because it's only the people using TikTok, which is the young generation, right? Like, it's the Zoomer generation, which is probably more left-leaning. But, like, this is the vision that the world has. And I gotta say that there's some truth to it, especially about the hating part, and it's sad. And let me tell you what I mean by this. Now, regardless if you agree or not with the ban for TikTok, and full disclosure, like, I don't have a TikTok account. I never logged on the app, so I generally don't care. And I also agree with the ban on principle because it's not fair for China to ban platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, but America has to allow Chinese platforms to operate. And so, like, on a principle, I get it. However, I did feel compassion for the people that lost their jobs. Like, we're talking about millions of people that created an entire livelihood around this platform. Libs of TikTok, for instance, right? Like, she's on Twitter, and what she does is she takes cringe videos from TikTok and shows it to the world, and she manages to make a living. And it's not just like the content creators themselves, it's the people they hire. Like, a lot of content creators hire editors, they hire artists, they hire sound designers, they hire entire studios. All these people out of a job, and the accountants and the legal team that's associated with some of them. And there's absolutely no compassion. In fact, there's a lot of hatred. It's like, well, they deserve it. Not a real job. And so, like, a real job means sucking dick at a McDonald's and working in a cubicle for a multi-million-dollar corporation. That's a real job. While being an entrepreneur and creating your own shit, that's not a real job. Like, back in the day, before social media, people could just start up their own newspaper. This is pretty much what a lot of content creators do. They just, start their own takes, and you had, like, a local newspaper by one guy that had the money to do it. But apparently now that's not a real job. And like, that's fine. But the question is, if you have no compassion and empathy for your fellow man, why should they have compassion and empathy for you? Like, how can you justify to them that when you're suffering from something or you're going through some hardship, why should they give a single fuck about you? And this is like the thing that most people can't get anymore. They can't have principles. They can't think it's like, okay, well, I don't care about TikTok, or I don't care about smoking, or I don't care about this issue or that issue. But I'm going to help other people because they seem to care. And so I want to help them out because maybe in the future I will have a problem that they don't care about. I will struggle with an issue that they don't care about. Maybe my car is getting taken out by the government because they want electric vehicles. And I have a gas car and the government is fucking me over. And there are other people that only take public transport and they don't care about private vehicles. But they will defend me simply because I defended them back in the past. That mentality is completely gone. And I want to say that this was not the case when I grew up. It wasn't the case in the 90s. It wasn't the case in the early 2000s. It wasn't the case in the 2010. This is a recent thing where people, like, unless it affects them, unless it's in their backyard, they absolutely do not care at all. There's no more empathy. There's no more compassion. Nothing. In fact, like, a lot of people are sadistic about it. This is not about TikTok, by the way. It's in all aspects of life. It's like, if someone is being hurt, especially like if it's something you disagree with, like, let's say, smoking is banned and someone doesn't smoke anymore. It's like, oh yes, it's a good thing that happened. It's like, no, a good thing would be if that person themselves decided to stop smoking by their own volition. That would be a good thing. Like, that person chose temperance, chose a virtue. That's something good. Being forced, being constrained is not good because, you know what? You got certain things that you're doing that the other person disagrees with. And so, like, when it's going to happen to you, What justification do you have for other people to help you or give a shit about you? And so, like, this is what a lot of people are talking about. The one with Americans being loud probably hit the hardest, because I go around on social media and I surround myself with Americans, and I started thinking it's normal, but it's like the idea that you can't just have a disagreement and let it go anymore. You can't just, like, there used to be a time when you had hipsters, and it's like, well, they're weird, they're doing their thing, but they're not hurting anyone. Just let them go. What are they doing? They're listening to goth music. It's like, okay, fine. That's weird. But, like, most people would be like, just leave them be. Just leave them. Now, that's not the case. Now, even the most small disagreements is enough to cause flame wars. Like people go out of their way to attack others. And I gotta say, I took a little bit of a journey recently, as I went and I had to do some research for the videos that I made on Red Note. So, like, I watched how the Chinese social media is like. I went and I watched how the Romanian social media is like. And I watched how the Japanese social media is like. And all the other places, like, man, like people are less confrontational. Like, people just chill and they just talk about stuff. But when you go on Twitter, the moment you disagree on the small thing, like, people are so fucking confrontational. They just can't let it go. And they will pressure and pressure and pressure. And the problem is, like, this causes mental illness. Like, it's not changing society. Because, like, very rarely do you go on Twitter and you actually change someone's mind. Like, it's more like there's different factions, different groups, and you have a person that just advocates for their group so that their group claps on them and gives them likes. But you're not going to get, like, people converted. You're not going to get, like, people changing their minds. It's just to see who gets the zinger. And the thing is, like, when you live like that day in and day out, it probably affects you at a mental level. Puts a burden on you. Like it feels so refreshing when I went and I experienced Romanian social media a little bit. And things were so chill, so calm, like, people still shredding memes like it's 2016, like, sharing, like, random memes and stuff. Cat photos and shit. And so this is what these people are talking about, that Americans are loud. It's like, they're basically saying they're extremely confrontational. And again, like, this wasn't the case, and I hope it's not going to be the case for long. There's probably, like, a thing with the Zoomer generation that I don't fucking get. But, man, like, they're so into moral policing. Like, moral policing used to be an adjective that would describe something negative that only happens in fascist countries. But now it's the entire generation that does it on both the left and the right, and I noticed that, There's an article that says that the Zoomers are aging pretty fast, and people can't accurately describe a Zoomer's age. And there's truth to that. Like, you would see a person that looks like 45, and they would tell you that they're 20. So, like, I don't know what's happening with Zoomers. Is it the food? Is it something like that? But, like, they're aging really, really fast. But the problem is that they're aging mentally as well. And what I mean by this is that usually it's elderly women that start judging other people nonstop. And very loudly, right? They sit on the balcony and they're very bitter because maybe their husband passed away, their kids don't see them for Christmas, and they're very bitter about society in general. And then they say there, it's like, oh, look at those women, look at the way they dress, and they're going clubbing. Oh, back in my day, they would never look, they're dressing like sluts. Like it takes an old woman to think like that. But I'm going on Twitter, and this is what the conversation is about video games now, like how women dress in video games, and people are very outspoken about it, both sides of the fence. And it's like so fucking weird, because like this wasn't the case back in the day. I mean, usually the teenagers were the edgy ones, the ones that break the boundaries, the ones that listen to death metal, and they like South Park, and they like Beavis and Butthead. It was the teenagers that were into that. And it was like the elderly people that were like, ban this, ban that, we must save society, the devil, And now it's the new generation that does it, and it's so fucking obnoxious. And this is what other people are saying, because like, it's not everywhere. Like, this is what Americans need to understand. You don't have to live this way. You're not changing anyone's mind. You're just doing problems to yourself. You're just like loading yourself up with this negative energy that serves absolutely no purpose. Like, you're not saving society on Twitter. And so, this was a very interesting observation. And as you can see, like, it's got 8,000 likes, 6,000 likes. Like, it's a huge amount of people that are agreeing with these things. And this is not something to shame people, because, like, God knows, like, my culture, my Romanian culture has a lot of negative aspects as well. And But it's like just a little bit of self-reflection. Like, you can literally improve your life if you realize you don't have to live this way. Like, you don't have to go to social media to burden yourself with negativity. And it's also important to have empathy and compassion for your fellow men, even if it's something that you disagree with, you know? Like, if it's a person that's genuinely suffering, like, maybe you hate TikTok for whatever reason, right? But if it's taken away from someone and they're legitimately suffering, they're in pain, right? Like, maybe their business, like, maybe their livelihood was dependent on that business. Maybe, they have, like, some addiction or whatever, and now they don't have it. Like, I'm pretty sure you have your addictions, right? You have your stuff that you care about. And if you can't support other people who are suffering and they're upset, or you're trivializing their suffering, then when you're suffering over trivial shit, why would you expect anyone to care? You know, maybe your cat died and you care, but other people don't like cats. They hate cats. Right? Like, how would you like it if they came up to you and said, like, you know what, that's a good thing. Like, it was a pest anyway. It carries disease. It's a burden on the family. Like, you have to pay expenses for it. It's not a good idea to have a pet. How would you feel like if someone came up to you and said that shit, you know? You probably wouldn't. So, like, why would you go to someone and be happy when they're miserable? There's just so much less empathy in the world. Let me know what you guys think, though. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.